and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to speak to all of you again. I'm very glad to announce that Fatherland Fall is back. Whoever invented White Boy Summer must live north of Dixieland, also known as the South, also known as God's country. And it is too hot to enjoy White Boy Summer down here when not in the water. You know it's hot outside when your car is overheating before you drive it. I saw an ad online that said, "Did 95-degree heat evaporate your drink? You may be entitled to compensation." I've drunk so much bottled water, Dasani and Deer Park started following me on X. While I was away taking a break, I got to reflect on the direction of my channel. I realized how disgusted I've become with the X accounts and their shallow understanding of politics. Video title: Trump destroys libs on tariffs and trade deals. 5 reasons why the Democrats are the real racists. Titles like these and the people that peddle them are not only vapid and shallow, you'll often find that after listening to these content creators that you have not learned anything from them. It's Fox News repackaged. That's the opposite of why I'm here. I am here to educate the right. And my second objective is to entertain y'all. I find that so many people on our side are walking around with their heads down, sort of like Thanos' quote to Tony Stark, "You are not the only one cursed with knowledge." Excuse me, I feel like I need to wash out my mouth after quoting from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think I'll need to rinse with a degreaser grade acid and maybe mixed with hydrogen peroxide. But a lot of you do. You think that because you know things, that automatically means you should be sad. The opposite is true. Scripture says knowing the truth sets us free. God says a cheerful heart is good medicine. Well, I want to be God's pharmacist and spread humor along with the information I put out for you. Life is too short to be gloomy, disheartened, and as Generation X and Alpha like to say, black-pilled. Sad. I've said many times that I want to educate the right. And when I say right, I don't mean classical liberals, neoconservatives, and politically homeless normies. I mean the real right wing. The good normal people that have been routinely name called by the left. They say you're racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, and a pretty new label for us and our people: stochastic terrorists. And if the left has not been calling us this, there's no doubt in my mind that Charlie Kirk would still be alive right now if they had refrained from labeling us that. Something I thought about during my break is how we determine who our friends are versus our enemies. I made an episode for my paid supporters that will eventually be released to everybody about an article written by Academic Agent, The 10 Theses of the Dissident Right. That's the title. I talked some in that episode about how to delineate friend and foe. This is essential because our enemies often speak like we do. They criticize the left, they say they're against forever wars, and they say they oppose illegal immigration. But it's vital to see who they attack. When one of us falters, these buzzards flying in our flock pretend to be us, and then instead, whenever one of us falters, they swarm around that poor soul and start to peck him to death. Kind of like Black Lives Matter terrorists when they see white people. And it's important that we stand up for each other. I keep using terms like us and talking about our group. Who are we? I'm about to tell you. For everyone confused, let's nail our colors to the mast. What I call the real right and most normies call the dissident right is a group of people united by a love for old America. We read in our books or talk to our elderly friends about the way our nation used to be. We've also had the unfortunate experience of seeing what a nation is like when it has departed from all these principles and disconnected from our past. Once we had a nation that was run by our forefathers, the descendants of our founders and the people that helped set us free from the British crown. These people made something. A powerful nation made up of a particular people. This is the America we know and love. A nation where we loved our Lord so much we put "in God we trust" on our currency and had the 10 Commandments in most public institutions. We swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God in court with our hand on the Bible. Our founders and their grandchildren built an economy that eventually created a superpower and the best place in the world to live. A place where crime, wickedness, and hardship existed, but evil was punished and good was rewarded. Good Americans were allowed to thrive and live their lives, worshiping the Lord above as they chose. Wicked men were locked away or executed by firing squad, or most commonly with a rope. Men worked to put food on their table, and women raised the children while also working at home. The children often followed in their father's footsteps or entered apprenticeship programs if they wanted to be in a different career field. Churches cared for the widows, orphans, and the disabled. So, this is what we do want and what we love. And since we love this nation and her people, we want our nation to be reborn. It's not just a matter of conserving, we want this to be reborn. How do we do that? There are a number of issues we speak out about. After talking about what we are for, it's time to talk about what we're against. We oppose wars that do not serve our interests, wars that serve other nations' national security while doing nothing for our own. I want to quickly say that does not make us per se anti-war. Libertarians, I think, are actually, anti-war. Libertarians believe that there's really no good war. I think that Benjamin Franklin once said there never was a good war or a bad peace. That's not exactly true. I don't subscribe to that. But what we do oppose are wars that serve other nations' national interest and their security while doing nothing for our interests, our security, for America. We refuse, this is more about what we're for, to slavishly worship the dollar. We want a man to be able to go to work hard for a day and bring home enough to feed his wife and family, not go into debt and work his entire life so his kids can graduate with more debt and begin the cycle all over again. And we refuse to believe that the status quo is as good as it gets. Our economy has not always been this way. And anyone that critiques the current status quo is not automatically a communist. That's a establishment talking point. We also should take communism seriously. We want people that actually are Marxists funded by, in some cases, the Chinese Communist Party, or in other cases, members of the American Communist Party, other people who are Marxists in their beliefs, cultural Marxists and otherwise economically, to have no power. The battle cry that's starting to go back around America is that Joseph McCarthy was right whenever he did his best, everything he could, to remove communism and communist influences from America. We support that. Furthermore, back to another principle that we hold, we deny that anyone that sneaks across the Rio Grande or lands on our soil in a plane ride paid for by Warren Buffett, Tom Steyer, Mark Zuckerberg, or George Soros immediately transforms into our founding fathers' stock descendants. They are different. They do not belong here. Most people in America know that in their gut. Calling us racist or xenophobic doesn't change it. We also want to stop the expansion of government from running our lives, people trying to do the right thing, and use power to punish evil for a change. We see how people are being taught to hate us because of the color of our skin. We also see how children are being taught that sex outside of marriage is not only not bad, children are being taught that sex outside of marriage is good. Or that God may have made a mistake when he made them. Like, I don't know, causing them to be born in the wrong body. That seems like a good place to use government power to curb evil, to put a stop to that. So, all that out of the way, who is on our team? I made this Venn diagram to help a little bit. So as you always know, this is what a Venn diagram typically will look like. Here are some different things that I look for. Now, as you can see, there's a number of things that cross. I'm not going to get super detailed and nerdy about this, but these are some things you need to be looking for. Number one, they need to be, when I say a social conservative, I am using the jargon, I'm using the term as a typical person in media would use it. I really am not a conservative. I'm pretty clear about being to the right of the Republican Party and all conservatives. But when I say social conservative, pro-life, pro-family, pro-traditional values, opposed to things like abortion, opposed to things like gay marriage, and I would say for a father being the head of his household, the mother being also the head in the sense that she's over the children but not above her husband. That is what I would say as far as being a social conservative. There's probably other issues. Obviously, this should go without saying, but opposed to the trans issues, that should be obvious, but I wanted to say that anyway. Anti-establishment. We're going counterclockwise here. It's very important to me that you oppose the establishment. The current establishment, the regime that we're living under, that we're occupied by, does not have America's interests at heart. If you want to call it the deep state, if you want to call it the New World Order, we need candidates, we need men to run who are social conservative and anti-establishment. America First foreign policy. I'm going to make a separate video at some point talking about this because America First is becoming cool again. When Trump ran, it was, oh, that's an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Now, people are starting to say, you know what? America First is actually kind of cool. Thank you, Trump, for bringing that up. And I've said this before. Trump is not the end-all, be-all. He's a baton runner. He needs to hand the baton off to somebody else, and then someone else needs to keep going with the America First movement. That's what we want ultimately. But that means not fighting wars in the Middle East for no good reason, not fighting a war in Eastern Europe against Russia or Ukraine for no good reason, and not banging a war drum about we are going to defend Taiwan against China, because that's going to also start another front to World War III, and we don't want that. It's just a lot of very stupid calls being made for American foreign policy. Now, there is a time when our interest is bigger than just the borders of the continental United States, and I get that. But part of the American sovereignty movement is getting rid of that. We want ultimately to only defend and take care of our own within the continental United States. And I'm talking about, if you want to include Hawaii, fine, from all the way out there to California, all the way to the eastern seaboard. And I know a lot of people don't like California, and I completely get that. But unfortunately, they're stuck with us, and we're stuck with them, at least for the time being. So we need an America First, and I say a real America First foreign policy, not an America First foreign policy like Mike Johnson, who says, well, I'm an America Firster, and then consistently votes to send billions of dollars to Ukraine. Also, we want a border hawk, someone who takes immigration seriously, who wants to send them all home, all the illegals. Doesn't matter, no excuses, no exceptions, get out of here. And then also seriously look at the H-1B visa issue. The people that have come into this country to replace Americans who are doing tech jobs, tech work, because that's also a serious issue. We do not want our jobs being taken away by people who could do the job just as well. In fact, better, because they're Americans who know our language and know our ways. So we also want border hawks for that reason, both for illegal and illegal immigration. And finally, this is very important. You'll see this last part. I went from social conservative to anti-establishment, America First foreign policy, border hawk, and then does not hate us. There are people like you and like I who are on the real right, also known as the dissident right, and the mainstream conservatives, the GOP, feels like they have to, counter signal us, talk about how wrong we are, how they may stand for everything we stand for, but they disavow our support because we're so-called racist. Or sexist, transphobic, xenophobic, whatever the argument is. And so if we can find a candidate who is these things but also does not hate us, that kind of question mark portion on the Venn diagram in the middle, that is who we want. Now, if it's only 3 or 4 of these things, great. But that is our ideal. You may be thinking, dang, if anyone's in the center of that diagram, they must be the best politician ever. Who is it, Josh? I don't know. And in truth, this diagram does not show all the possible overlapping categories that can happen. Someone might be great in all these categories but one, or maybe great in only 2 of these categories. I'm not saying that failure to be any one of these things is a deal breaker for me. What I am saying is these are the things that I look for to consider voting for someone. So we on the dissident right take these positions because something horrible happened. Our nation was slowly taken over by evil people who don't care about Americans. Instead, they say we should serve these liberal elites, including dying in wars for them and being taxed so our money can be used to house, feed, and clothe the invaders they've allowed in, and simultaneously taking away more and more of our rights, our ability to speak, provide for our families, worship the Lord, and advocate for ourselves and our sovereignty. Anybody that thinks white people are all evil, supports the war on terror, opposes border restrictions, supports LGBT activism in their agenda, labels anyone with anything critical to say about capitalism an idiot or a Marxist, and I will add, this is kind of different. So anyone who is otherwise obsessed with calling people fascists, racists, or Nazis is not our friend. Those people are the liberals. The problem is, though, that our enemy does not always yell, "Open borders for America," or "My body, my choice," when talking about abortion. I had to add the clarification because there's really no one more anti-choice than a lib talking to an anti-vaxxer. The only thing more forced than vaccines in 2021 was laughter into the SNL skits. I haven't seen anything more unfunny than Alec Baldwin impersonating Donald Trump. But hey, with all Trump's legal problems, at least shooting someone wasn't a charge. I wish Baldwin could say the same. Whenever you go to the range, remember to, Alec, always load extremely carefully.